Hey guys, this is Chris Lawton, EDL 852, Module 12. So, background on the case study. Lightville Community School District serves two predominantly rural townships. 60% of the residents live on farms. There are currently two schools, an elementary school, which is K through 6, and a junior/senior high school, which is 7 through 12. The school district's population is increasing at a rate of 2% per year, and the population growth is attributable to being 10 miles away from a major city, rural environment, low land costs, and a relatively new schools. Due to the population growth, there are three options for the school system to consider. The first option is build an addition to the junior/senior high school and move the 6th grade from the elementary facility to the junior/senior high school facility. The second option is to build additions to both existing schools. And the third option is to build a new middle school, housing grades 6 through 8, and removing 6th grade from the elementary school and the 7th and 8th grades from the secondary school. The best option, building a new middle school that will house grades 6 through 8. So that was the decision made. The town voted in a referendum, 53% to 47% voted to build a new school. So it's very clear that this is not an easy decision within the town. The superintendent recommends, and the board approved, that the new principal be employed 12 months prior to the school's opening in order to make staffing decisions, organize the school's programs, collaborate with architects and construction managers. And the committee chooses Susan Potter. She is going to lead this new middle school. She's an experienced teacher and a current middle school assistant principal in a suburban school district. So Section 2, the advisory committee. The advisory committee, or the visioning and planning committee, consisted of 4 teachers, each from a different subject area, 4 parents, and Principal Potter. Principal Potter presented the following guidelines to the advisory committee. The committee would operate democratically. Consensus should be the preferred method in making decisions. Develop a vision statement providing parameters for planning program scope and implementation. Vision should reflect the collective values and beliefs of the committee and the community. All stakeholders would be given an opportunity to suggest elements of the vision. The committee agreed with the guidelines but disagreed with Principal Potter's contention that she would not be the chair of the committee. So therefore, Helen Burke, who is an experienced and veteran English and social studies teacher, will be the chair, and she's also the sister of a current board member. So the conflict. Helen, she's the advisory committee chair. She's also the sibling of one of the school board members. She tells Principal Potter that my brother says that you are a visionary leader. He thinks you should design our middle school philosophy and draft our mission and mission statements. This community respects administrators and relies on them to make important decisions. I speak for our entire planning committee in telling you that we are comfortable having you shape these documents. We believe we can help you get them approved. So the ethical dilemma. Principal Potter wants to share leadership responsibilities. She believes a vision statement should reflect the collective thinking of stakeholders, and she does not want to be an autocrat in this process. She believes her core values and beliefs are being compromised by the committee's wishes. The committee believes that Principal Potter is the expert, and she should draft a philosophy statement and present it to the committee for approval. The same procedure would recur for the vision statement. They believe that this will expedite the process and enable them to support, modify, or refute Principal Potter's draft statements. Helen Burke's brother, who is a school board member, is promoting the process that is being advocated by his sister, Helen. The community respects administrators and relies on them to make important decisions. This is characteristic of most school districts and most school communities. The hiring committee is supposed to do their due diligence to ensure that a principal has the knowledge and expertise to make important decisions, and those decisions will be in the best interest of the students, staff, and community. Section 5, synthesizing the information. Principal Potter is unfamiliar with the values of the community as she is new to the community. She's coming from a suburban district and she's now in a rural district. She believes in a shared leadership and collaborative approach to forming the philosophy and vision statements that will reflect the collective thinking of all stakeholders. These statements will set the parameters for planning program scope and implementation. The advisory committee believes that Principal Potter is the expert and she should draft the philosophy and vision statements, and then they will provide feedback and approve the statements. Section 6, identifying Principal Potter's options. Option A, follow the advice of the advisory committee and draft the philosophy and vision statements and then present them to the committee for approval. Principal Potter could solicit the help of other principals in the district or community members outside of the committee in order to determine the goals and values of the community. This would be a compromise, as Principal Potter might feel like there is still a sense of collaboration in the process by contacting other stakeholders, but she would ultimately be tasked with creating both the philosophy and vision statements on her own before presenting it to the committee. Option B. From the onset, the committee wanted Principal Potter to be the chair of the advisory committee since she was the most qualified person for this key role. If Principal Potter agrees to take on the role of chair, she might be able to use that as leverage to encourage the other members of the advisory committee to share in the leadership responsibilities and collaboratively develop a philosophy and vision statement that reflects the values of all community stakeholders. Option C. If Principal Potter was adamant about adhering to her core values and beliefs, she could discuss a dilemma with the superintendent, who could offer advice on how to handle the situation, or if Principal Potter wanted to take an extreme measure, she could recommend to terminate the advisory committee and start over in order to try and attract community members who are willing to follow the guidelines that Principal Potter laid out from the onset. Section 7, evaluating the options. So option A, the pros. She follows a directive from the advisory committee as it would appease key and influential leaders in the school community. It would minimize potential conflict with key and influential leaders. She could form alliances or partnerships with these key and influential leaders. The cons, it would be going along with the advisory committee's directive, would violate Principal Potter's core values and beliefs, and it could set a precedent that Principal Potter could be pushed around by key and influential leaders. Option B, the pros. It could be a way to get the advisory committee involved in the process of creating a philosophy and vision statement. Although Principal Potter does not want to be the chair of the committee, it would at least be a collaborative effort of shared leadership. The cons, Principal Potter does not want to be the chair of the committee. If she is chair of the committee, it would create the perception that this was not a collaborative process, which would negatively impact the buy-in from staff and the community. Option C, the pros. If she consults the superintendent for advice, it would involve another key figure in the process. If she terminates the advisory committee and creates a new committee that is willing to adhere to her guidelines, then she can truly create a collaborative process of shared leadership. Also, it sets a precedent that Principal Potter will not sacrifice her values, beliefs, and ethics. The cons, considering the composition of the current advisory committee, she could create long-lasting enemies in the school, on the school board, and in the community. Section 8, the best option. Considering all the circumstances, the best option for Principal Potter would be option B. This is the best option because it's a fair compromise. The advisory committee would feel most comfortable with Principal Potter being the chair of the committee, considering her expertise and experience at the middle school level. Although being the chair of the committee is not a position Principal Potter wants, it is her best option as she could use this compromise as a form of leverage to get the committee members to collectively and collaboratively work towards creating a philosophy and vision statement that align with the values and goals of all community stakeholders. This option would potentially spare Principal Potter from some of the political backlash that she would certainly face in option C, and it would enable her to keep her core values and beliefs intact without being perceived as a pushover as outlined in option A. Section 9, implementing the decision. Principal Potter will assume the position of committee chair, but she really will be the facilitator of the process. She knows the steps needed in order to develop a philosophy and vision statement, and she can anticipate the obstacles that they will face along the way. She needs to draw on her experience and expertise at the middle school level and tap into the different roles that she has played at the middle school level, such as being a teacher and an administrator. Her experiences will be invaluable in this process. Ultimately, as a facilitator, she should be detailing the proper steps to follow and even providing examples from other middle schools that could help the committee formulate ideas on how they can develop their own version that reflects the community that they represent. Furthermore, Principal Potter must explain why creating a philosophy and vision statement is important and how it will set the parameters for planning program, scope, and implementation. Each committee member can share his or her beliefs about the ideal middle school. These individual philosophies will be discussed and the committee would arrive at a consensus. The philosophy statement will be presented to the superintendent and the school board for approval. The philosophy statement will serve as a guide for creating a vision statement. The same process would be followed in order to create a vision statement. Before the philosophy and vision statements are finalized and approved, it's important that the superintendent and school board solicits feedback from the community, students, and school staff through the use of surveys so that it accurately aligns with the values and goals of all stakeholders. This data can then be used to help determine the goals and values of all stakeholders so that the philosophy and vision statements reflects the desires of the community. This will make all stakeholders feel more invested in the process and the school, which will ultimately, This will make all stakeholders feel more invested in the process and the school, which will ultimately increase buy-in from all. Once the philosophy and vision statements are finalized and approved, they will be posted in the school's main office and in the classroom, as well as on the school's website. Additionally, any news or information home should include these statements to remind parents of the school's vision and goals. Ultimately, it's very important to involve all stakeholders in the process of implementing a vision and goals, as it's a sign of shared leadership and, most importantly, collaboration. Section 10, questions to consider. Why is it important to develop and implement a vision and goals? The vision and goals are the foundation of the school. Once the vision and goals are established, then it will set the parameters for the scope of programs that will be offered and how they will be implemented. Ultimately, it will provide direction and guidance to the expected culture of the school. What should be the relationship between a mission statement and a vision statement? Mission and vision statements must work hand in hand. The mission statement will convey to stakeholders the type of commitments and actions that the school will be taking in order to align with the core values and beliefs of the stakeholders. The vision statement describes the end goal. What is a visionary leader? A person who has a clear picture of what the future of the school should look like, and they take steps to implement their vision and to motivate and inspire their staff to buy into that vision. Thank you guys for looking at my presentation. I appreciate it.